So could you start by talking me through what was the discussion around the Lord of the Rings and where you guys were thinking of going next?
Yeah, that there's not a lot of iconic location to pick from the movie trilogy. So Minas Tirith was one we never made, so it was pretty obvious choice to go with it. It was a little bit hard to crack really and to nail the shape, because this city is gigantic. Everything is gigantic with Minas Tirith, and then to make it a natural Lego product, that was the hardest part. So we had different concepts at first. The first one that was built was a gigantic thing, and it was obviously too big. It sold the idea like, hey, yeah, well, that could work. And the second one was something that was totally architectural scale, micro scale, and more accurate to the actual city. But then again, the issue was we really wanted to include minifigures with the set, and an architecture set wasn't really allowing us to do so. So we went with the mixed approach we did for Barad-dûr, like having something that is micro scale in the front and minifig scale in the back, so the minifig can interact with the model, and then went with this. So having a lot of different locations where you can actually place minifigs. So as I showed during the presentation, the outer walls are actually built in a way that if you turn it around, you can see a depiction of Minas Tirith's streets, and you can place the minifig, and they can interact with the model with tiny market style, some weapon racks, preparing for a battle, who knows, and some cool details we found watching the movie at 0.5 speed.
Yes, I suppose if there is a film that you're going to watch multiple times for research, it's a long film to be sitting down and watching.
Yes,
exactly.
I was only focusing on the specific scenes located in Minas Tirith, so that's fine.
Do you guys ever speak to the Disney team when you're working on these sorts of models? Because obviously it's a similar approach they take to their big tall castles, where they have sort of micro scale on the outside and then minifigures on the inside.
That was also an inspiration coming with this model, but that one was a little bit more tricky to deal with, because there's the top that is also should accommodate some minifigs. It's absolutely not on scale, but that's part of the trade-off we made. I think that was the most difficult thing to just get right. So the outer walls and the top section, because that's obviously where the most famous scenes are occurring. So it's a similar approach, and I think it worked quite well in this case, even though we had to come up with clever solution just to depict everything, because we really wanted to nail the overall shape of Minas Tirith, because it's mostly recognizable with the 7 levels of the city and the spur over there. So those things are pretty accurate to the city, but then it's how to fill everything. So there's some kind of forced perspective with the layers where it's bigger at the base and it goes smaller and smaller the more you go to the top. But that allows us to have all the 7 levels and being as accurate as possible. We were also looking at the bigature they made for the movie. We had a lot of fun just trying to capture all the details, the architectural details, and to place them roughly and the most accurately as possible where they should be. So the towers, the houses, you can, if you pay attention, tiny details, you can, oh, this is that one from the movie. Yeah.
One thing that's really striking about this model is how it's not just the way you've scaled it, but it's got like because of the layered approach, it's got like a sense of scope to it. It's like got a depth that you don't always see in a Lego model. Was that something that you were very consciously thinking about as you were?
Yes, because when designing this city, as I already mentioned, the purpose is to become a real Lego product, and we were also aware of the footprint of the city because it's huge, 60 centimeters wide and 60 centimeters tall. So if you look at the model from the top, you can notice it's not full circles. It's a little bit flattened just to save some space, and so the tiny trick, the tricks we use just to make it actually not as huge, a huge monster. But so having the rock also with an angle that is going forward, flattening the model a bit, just to as long as the oval look, the shape was right and feels right. That was the goal we tried to achieve. Yeah.
I'm afraid that's all we're sharing here from my conversation with François and Nicola. If you want to read the interview in full, with many more fascinating deep dive insights into how they developed the model, then you'll need to get Blocks Magazine issue 142. It's going to be available at blocksmag.com. The best way to get it is to take out a great value subscription package, and then every single month you'll get a new 116-page magazine before it arrives in the shops. And I promise, in the full interview, I do have questions for Nicola. He doesn't just have to sit and listen to François talk for the whole time.